When were you born?
Don't do that now.
When were you born? Asked you a question, answer me.
I was born on August the 11th, 1929. It's the year of the stock market crash. I'm not sure if I caused it or if I was caused by it. I'm not sure.
This is Mr. Sonny Richter talking.
Are you the interviewer or the
How old were you
interviewee?
when you first started
When I was
playing?
born?
When you first started playing?
When I first started trying to play, I was about, I'd say 12 years old. 13, 14, somewhere in there. No,
What was your first guitar?
an old Stella.
Where'd you get it? Where did you get your first guitar?
Yeah, I got it from a guy he's a blind man named Ballard Edgar. And he lived all the way across town from us. And the town is Funiac Springs, Florida. And I rode my bike over one day and bought it for $5. Strapped that thing on my back and rode home like I was Roy Rogers. Because I thought I was Roy Rogers for a while until I got home. I had to cut some wood.
Hello, this is a story about a man who was a remarkable musician, undertook an incredible journey to get there, but also valued his family, his friends, and his faith. Now, it would take much longer to tell this little tale than the amount of time we have to tell it in. But I do hope that for myself and for my family, I'm able to show you a glimpse into this man's life and talents that we were all so fortunate to get to know. And I'm happy to share that with you. Thank you. There were a few guitar players when Sonny was a young boy that really challenged the idea that the guitar was just a rhythm instrument, or was more than just for blues players and hillbillies. My father often told me that unlike several years later, when being a guitar player became somewhat cool, you were looked down upon for playing one.
When I first started playing guitar, I learned on a little small, what you call a cheap acoustic, little round flat top. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stella is exactly.
I was trying to think of to come up with a name.
Stella.
Yeah.
I still have that. And a gentleman moved into my neighbor next door to me, and he and his friends used to get together and play their instruments on Sunday afternoon and so forth, and Saturday. And I used to sneak over and pick up their guitars and start trying to play. And finally, I learned a little bit enough. I'll cut the story short, but I did learn enough. I got a job with my first band when I was about 15.
Mm-hmm.
And a man shoved an electric guitar in my hand and says, "Here," says, "You are now going to be our lead guitar player." And he scared me. He scared me right out of my shoes, you know.
One guy changed that, Charlie Christian. Sonny listened to him with the Benny Goodman Orchestra. He also would have been listening to Bob Wills, Django Reinhardt, and really anything he could get his hands on from jazz, pop, and country musicians.
Plum full of eye red.
He started playing professionally at an early age, 15 by some reports, but the first recording we have of his was a recently discovered acetate of a live recording from 1948, a cover of a song called Texas in My Soul. Bob Wills had done it, but the hit of the day was by Tex Williams.
Amarillo, San Antone, any old place, I just call it my home. I gotta go. I got Texas in my soul. Dallas, Fort Worth, San Angelo, Houston, Austin, or El Paso, I gotta go. I got Texas in
Sonny
my
got to hear this for the first time, since he had recorded it just months before he had passed, and he was pretty amazed to hear it.
Amarillo, San Antone, any old place, I just call it my home. I gotta go. I got Texas in my soul. Dallas, Fort Worth, San Angelo, Houston, Austin, or El Paso, I gotta go. I got Texas in my soul. It's there I know my places. You see only smiling faces, and so partner, the rest of the world's not worth a pound of good old Texas dirt. I gotta go. I got Texas in my soul.
As he told the story, he was playing with a pickup band that night, taught a quick arrangement of the song, and being about 19 years old, tried to lower his voice to match that of Williams. Someone happened to transcribe it and cut it onto an acetate for him, where it was hidden away until just recently. He also remembered that in order to play the club, he had to use an ID card from one of his sisters to get in. He would meet up with a man from Texas named Sam Nichols, who had recently landed a recording contract with MGM. Sam had a player named Porky Freeman, who would do the majority of his recording sessions, but often on the road, Sonny would replace him, at least during the California dates. One day, Nichols asked Sonny to fill in for Freeman during one-day sessions in 1948 that would yield 4 songs for MGM. One of them was called Keep Your Motor Hot. Sonny would later dismiss this song as kind of a novelty tune that he couldn't remember when he first told that story to me many years ago. I would find out that little song became very highly collectible in the last couple of decades, as it's now deemed to be something of a prototype rockabilly tune, much like I would now regard Hank Williams' Moving On Over as an early cousin to Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock. Here's a little bit of that singing.
Oh, keep your motor hot. Oh, keep your motor hot. Better keep your motor hot, 'cause you gotta make a getaway. My Uncle Dick had the old man blues. He went downtown just to get some booze. Then he got his motor hot. Yeah, he got his motor hot. Yep, he got his motor hot. Oh, he got his motor hot. Oh, he got his motor hot. Then he tried to make it get away.
Sam also made hand-tooled leather belts for friends, and this is the one that he did for my father way back then. He would also team up in the late 50s with a group called the Western Gentlemen and tour with them singing and playing. Here's a little bit of those guys playing in 1958.
Tune that Sonny Richter and yours truly kind of get together and beat out on. Little thing called 7 Come 11. Tune called The Lilies Grow High. And it features the voice of Sonny Richter. The rest of them, yeah, the old man, old Sonny Richter. He must be at least, well, no, he's not that old. He's about, here we go, a little thing called, Lilies Grow High. There it is. I knew it was there something. We're going to get that right along. But yeah, Stetsons and 6 guns and the lilies grow high. High, high, high. They grow for a man with a gunsling in hand, that before his time must die. Must die. The trail he has traveled, the trail is spattered with blood.
During the years 1952 to 1953, Sonny would find himself enlisted in Korea as part of the USO. At 6'1" and 140 pounds, he was probably far better suited to carry a guitar than a gun. He always loved that experience and told many stories about it. While in Los Angeles, he would cut hundreds of sessions as a guitar player, appear on local television shows and radio. He worked with the likes of Spade Cooley and others. Again, due to unfortunate circumstances, we don't have available to us much of what he laid down during this period. What we do have are a lot of home recordings, and for much of his film, that is what you're listening to in the background. He would often overdub himself on 2-track in the early 1960s in his bedroom. I could hear him at all hours of the day. Musicians, many of them famous, some I wouldn't pick up on as a kid, would come by and hang out. These were his friends, and they knew and respected his talents, even when the world at large wouldn't have known. And my father, by that time, wouldn't have cared all that much about fame, although a bit more fortune would have been nice. He had basically retired from pursuing things like LA and Nashville session work by the time he'd married my mom and we moved to the San Luis Obispo area. He would continue to work clubs up and down the Central Coast and occasionally record with friends or for himself. He'd also work odd jobs to go with that, including delivering large water jugs to office accounts back when those things were made out of really heavy glass. When my parents split up in 1970, I did not see my father again for several years. That was difficult on everyone, but in the intervening time, 2 great events happened. One, he met a young lad named Chris Scarborough, who would stand in front of our house when I still lived there, waiting for him to come out and talk to him. He wanted to learn from my father so much, and eventually he became a student who learned so quickly that almost whatever Sonny wanted to teach him, he would pick up. Eventually, they would play professionally together for many years, and Chris became almost like a son to him.
And then to hear him do some Django, he got me listening to Django, then he could just do everything Django did. And sound like Django, exactly. A lot of people say, you can hear guys that can imitate Django, but I think Sonny does the best impersonation of Django anybody I ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody will probably ever know it either,
right?
Except me and you.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. So Sonny would have to learn. He learned to read music on his own, and and then he started hanging out with some heavy cats that could play. And then can you really play that thing? So he'd have to learn the hardest instrumentals, Dizzy Fingers, which was a piano song, and Stage Fright, and all these songs which are just breakneck tempos, and say you really aren't a guitarist until you can play these. So he comes from that school, which is great.
Yeah.
Because you can sit down and say, okay, play Muskrat Ramble. He can play the melody, he can do it, whatever.
Yep.
Anyway, I like to use Chet Atkins. He can sit. Okay, Chet. If he was sitting here, you'd say, okay, or Sonny, okay, strike me a G chord. And Sonny could play the same chord, and it would sound totally different. Nothing else. Just play me the G chord, and then I have Chet play it. Mm-hmm. And that comes from your soul. And so Sonny's got a musical soul.
Yeah.
And that can't be denied. And that's why I love Sonny Richter.
Second, he met Nancy King in 1975, who would become the love of his life, and they would be together for some 39 years. It is important to note that over all the years, Sonny was a father not only to his own kids, but willingly took on several kids from Nancy's family who were a bit older, but he loved them all the same as they got to know each other. I think he got more comfortable with that role as he got older, and by the time I would be reunited with him in the late 70s, a remarkable event that was already in evidence. But learning to get to know him again and to pick up that relationship was difficult, but well worth it. My older sister and younger brother would also eventually reconnect. I'm happy to be part of such a large, extended family, and here are a few pictures from across the generations that shows some of those connections.
Talk and move. You don't have to be still for this. Oh, yeah. Okay. This is a moving. A waving section there.
Everybody wave. Well, like in the football game.
There's a motley crew there. I want to tell you. What a group. Okay. Yeah, let's see this.
There she is.
Yes, yes. Oh, boy, I don't like this. Viv's in pain on that camera. There's Mom. Hey, Mom.
In his later years, all Sonny wanted to do was pass on some of his knowledge to the younger generations. Here he is with Bill Bledsoe, playing for school children in Idaho in 1993, playing different styles and educating them along the way.
12th Street rag. I don't know if we can make this or not. Let's try it, okay? If we all get lost, we'll just go out and meet in the playground somewhere. That's it. Are you ready, Bill? Okay.
We would also do this at home. Here's a few clips with my kids sitting in, listening to the master.
Real basic, and if a guy's been playing too long, he doesn't want to do it. So, oh, that's too boring. So, the simplest little thing in the world is a C scale. First position, you know, okay, you do that one, don't you?
Is that?
Okay, and then you do all the others. That's C scale too, see, and if you know all these, try to do it slow. There's different ways, other ways of doing it. That's just one. That's not even getting into the other, the minors and if you do a little scales, you couldn't do that.
Right. That's what you scales all the time.
Yeah. Or anything else. So you E minor.
same thing melody.
Yeah,
No. And I do it sometimes kind
Remember, he can't play.
in a scale, even a minor, even a minor scale. That's
One important change in his life occurred in 1991 when he really decided to dedicate his life to God. Although his father had been a minister and he had been around believers all his life, including Bill Butso, who had left music behind in the early 60s to play gospel music exclusively and of course spent a lot of time sharing with him, it really wasn't until the early 90s that Sonny decided to retire and dedicate himself to playing gospel and touring with Butso, initially in Idaho. Here is part of an interview for a radio station in 1992.
And where are you from, Sammy?
Sonny.
Sonny. Whoa, baby.
I wondered if
You
there's
did-
three of
you
us,
did.
four of us in here a while ago, Nels. Yeah, it's Sonny,
Well,
not Sammy. But
that's real embarrassing.
close.
That's real embarrassing for
That's
me
all right.
to
That's close
use
enough.
your name wrong.
Maybe I should use that.
Well, so it's Sonny Richter, folks. I introduced him wrong, and he had the courtesy to not correct me. So
Yes.
I'll get him for that later.
But
You're from Oregon.
I'm living in Oregon presently. We just moved there recently, I guess about 6 weeks ago, really, something like that, less than 2 months. I spent the last 30 years in California, and we just relocated to Oregon just before we started this tour together. And as Bill said about the way back in the early 50s, and I said that's the 1950s, as I remind people, not 18. We did work together a lot, and we were on the road together, and everything. And I wound up living in California for a long time, and he went the other way to Hannah, Wyoming. We'd been trying to get together to do some gospel music together for some time, and just recently everything kind of fell into place. I did a early retirement, and he did too, and so I moved to Oregon, and everything kind of fell into place, and we got a chance to do it. And so that's what we're doing, and making some music for Jesus.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more, but I'd like to hear more of that good country type music. What do you want to do for us now?
We're going to do an instrumental feature Sonny on his big old Stratocaster.
Just a closer walk. How about that one? Okay.
Sounds good to me.
1, 2.
As Sonny's health started to fail, not many years after that, he stopped playing anywhere and stayed home, where he would continue to play, have friends like Bill and family come by to visit, and learn from him. I had decided to start archiving as much music as I could, and learning as many of the stories, and there was a lot, as I could, knowing that I would want to pass on all of this to generations of our family. In the end, there were some difficult times. It was hard on everyone because we were losing a beloved father, husband, grandfather, and friend. Never mind that most people would never know the music that this world-class guitar player and remarkable man would leave behind. I'm hoping this starts reversing that trend a little, and for all our family, we miss him, but we know that he is finally at peace, at home with the Lord, and maybe, just maybe, he is not only caught up with those who have gone before him, but has found one terrific jam session to eternally take part in.
And so he called Sonny to fill that position. One point in the recording, Sonny played something like an F chord against a G chord that everybody else was playing. And I said, "What was that?" And he said, "I don't know, but it sounded pretty good, didn't it, Hoss?" And it did sound good. Sonny always sounded good. Sonny, I was glad to know you and to make music with you. And Hoss, you are missed.
Stained with blood, so divine, oh wondrous beauty I see. Heart was on that old cross, Jesus suffered and died to pardon and sanctify me. To the old rugged cross I will ever be true. Its shame and reproach gladly bear. Then you called me someday to my home far away, where His glory forever I'll share. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown.
Bill said he grew up in Missouri, and he said that anyone there that didn't play, they would shoot them. Well, I grew up in a little small town in Florida called Funiac, and if you did play, they would shoot you. So I had to be careful. But that's where I got used to not playing with an amplifier when I practiced, because the neighbors would get mad and come over and say, "Would you shut that thing down?"